one. Welcome to Anchoring the Consciousness of Oneness World Summit. Today we have three amazing people who are doing amazing work in spreading the concept of oneness through unitive justice. Sylvia Clute is the president of the Alliance for Unitive Justice. She was a trial attorney for 28 years, and she's trained in collaborative law, mediation, and several models of restorative justice. And she now teaches restorative justice at the university level. She's authored 2 books. The first one, Beyond Vengeance, Beyond Duality, A Call for a Compassionate Revolution, and a novel, Destiny Unveiled. Paul Taylor first encountered the criminal justice system as a teenager. He received a charge of assault and battery, followed by a drug possession with intent to distribute. And then in 1994, he was sentenced to life plus 26 years. Paul has co-facilitated the Virginia Department of Corrections state-mandated programs for re-entry. And while still incarcerated, he began planning a program to be implemented on the outside called RVA League for Safer Streets. Upon Taylor's grant of parole in 2017, he implemented a program that now brings hundreds of youth from various projects together to play basketball, which is credited for reducing violence and increasing harmony among public housing communities that have been in conflict for generations. Weldon Prince Bunn was convicted of first-degree murder and sentenced to life plus 80 years. While in prison, Prince read books, took classes, and slowly built a support system that would eventually help him earn parole. He began to support other inmates in turning their own lives around, and after serving 25 years of what he had expected to be a life sentence, he was granted parole and released just a year ago. And Prince joined Taylor in the RVA League for Safer Streets, where he taught children conflict resolution, problem solving, and critical thinking, and other lessons designed to give them options that do not involve violence. So thank you so much for being here today. You are some amazing people doing awesome work in the realm of unitive justice, and especially as it relates to prison culture change, which we'll get into. But first, I want to, one of you anyone can answer this question, but what is unitive justice for the viewers?
So I will answer that. So unitive justice is an approach or a way to create a system that has no punitive elements. So originally when I began working with this, I thought of it exclusively in the justice system. So it was a parallel justice system that has no punitive elements. But I've been working on it for over 30 years, and now it's very clear that it can be applied across the board. It can be applied in a prison setting. So the amazing thing was when I met Paul and Prince, we discovered that without them, knowing what I was working on, we actually were all doing the same thing. But also in business, I'm just now writing on unitive politics and applying it in politics. We did a school program where we applied it in a school setting, and it applies everywhere. But the thing is, it has no punitive element. So you're creating a system, you're creating an environment that is free of punitive elements. And that's clearly a deep system change to get there. And Paul and Prince did that in prison, which is the most amazing story of all.
Yeah, so this sounds, we're glossing over the surface of what unitive justice is. It's such a rich way of being, right? But in thinking about the punitive system, and then thinking about incorporating what you call justice as love in the prison system, that is very hard for most people to wrap their heads around. So, so can you, Paul or Prince, tell me what that was like for you and what you actually did in the prison system and how you affected change in that manner?
That's a good question. thank you. I'm gonna speak on this one. First, thank you, sir, for having us here. And there's one little small correction I want to say. It's 2 years being home. Got to get them 2 years instead of one. You know what I mean? I gotta get them two, sir. It wasn't one, it's two now. So, but
Okay.
that's definitely, and I'm proud of that. Um, Unitive justice, right? And justice is love. I know when Ms. Clute had first introduced us to that idea, and I started thinking about exactly what me and Paul were doing while we were in. And like you said, it was a very, very difficult thing to do in an environment where, aggression and, physicality and, ego, pride, and all these types of things are the order of the day. And I think what allowed us to be effective in those environments was because we started to model in the way on what it means to have self-love, right? And when you live in an environment where people are mentally and emotionally battling with, their own value as people, you have to not be afraid of the assignment in a sense. And what I mean assignment is like, okay, each person's life matters. And a lot of us had been told certain things about ourselves as individuals, that we were never going to be anything, that the circumstances that we found ourselves in and where we were supposed to be, we were destined to go to prison. And, and when you start hearing this type of noise, it's like, okay, emotionally, it can put you in a really dark place. So we started, like I said, modeling what it is to have self-love. I mean, we have two different paths when it comes to, our spiritual paths in a sense, but what connects us is that we genuinely love ourselves as people and we love people. And I think that what allowed us to be effective was that our love was greater than their self-pain. And we wasn't trying to fix people. When you talk about unitive justice, it's not about going out finding what's wrong. No, I don't try to do that. Or we don't try to do that. What we do, we strive to make them see what's right inside of them, and we give them words of encouragement, and we don't try to use fear or try to force people into compliance. It was just, I mean, when I look back on it now, it amazes me that we were able to do it. But it was a mutual respect, right? I mean, the environment was kind of chaotic, but there was a respect. And the respect came from guys knowing that, we had our own personal integrity. We didn't judge them for where they were at, whether they were gang affiliated, whether they were homosexual, whether they were black, whether they were white, old, young, because in prison, it's like, you get ostracized for whatever type of crimes you had. So we just had to really take a real hard look and just say, you know what, the individuals that's in here with us, because we were no better. We had murder charges. So who are we to sit up and try to judge somebody else about why they was in prison? But just looking at them and say, that's somebody's son over there. That's somebody's brother over there. That's somebody's dad over there. That's somebody's uncle. And then let them see the beauty of the mirror. So I think that's pretty much how it is kind of funny, but yeah, I think that's pretty much how we did it. It sounds kind of simple, but yeah.
Now, piggyback off of what Prince says, and then, and like Prince said, we're really in appreciation of you allowing us to share this space with you today, Sarah. You know that when Clute and myself and Prince, Clute, Prince and myself started, our curriculum on trying to change some narratives, you showed up in our space. So we're more than honored to be here for you today.
Yes, sir.
That's first most, and may people know that are listening that, we are all joined at the hip in this fight. And what we do, Sarah, you're a part of what we do, and likewise, and we don't have to say much about Dr. Clute. You guys will definitely know more about her later. This is one amazing woman that took a chance on a couple guys, man, coming out of prison, to show us some things. And we know how to make kombucha, right?
That too.
So,
that's important, the kombucha making.
Kombucha is important, and luckily Sylvia also taught me how to do it, so we're all in that together.
The last batch was pretty good.
Yeah, you guys may learn how to do that. If you stay tuned to this show, you may learn how to get kombucha in here, right? So, but to answer the question, what is unitive justice, right? Well, unitive justice is the vaccine to punitive elements. it's the complete opposite of compulsion. You know, it's love. You know, but in a way of radical tenderness. Unity of justice is individuals such as Prince and myself inside of a controlled environment, finding our personal freedom and making it contagious. And notice that I said a vaccine. So we made it contagious inside of prison and helping men to find their own personal freedom by using a lot of our shared values. And one of the most prolific shared value that we had was everybody that worked there believed in the punitive process. So they pretty much kept their foot on our backs, if you will. So we say, how do we get this foot off of our back and allow it to apply in society? Well, we say, well, okay, well, we're going to do everything that we're supposed to do, which Prince and I came up with the term self-governing. We decided that if we govern our own affairs, we don't need anyone else to help us do it. And that just not applies inside of prison. It also applies inside of society. So what we started to notice was the infractions that was inside started going down. You know, people start getting along with them. Like Prince said, we was in a melting pot of what people may consider antisocial behaviors with all of the gang members and, you know, from A to Z. And we started to see, you know, people starting to respect each other because we wanted this more than we wanted that. Meaning that everybody in there, the other shared value, everybody wanted to one day go home. So Prince and I sort of laid the yellow brick road, you know, in a unitive form of how to get there. Yeah. And we get here and meet the lovely Dr. Clute, and who was doing it in her own way, as she said, for 30 years. Prince in there for 25 years. I'm in there for 23 years. Still trying to find our way. We just didn't have a title for it until we met Dr. Clute.
Right.
You said the vaccine for
vaccination.
Yeah, right. I've never heard you phrase it like that before. That's I thought you stuff that you put in your eye drops to get your eye clear.
Oh, vaccine.
Yeah, so
the vaccine.
You know, that's a good way to put it though.
Let's say the vaccine.
It allows you. Yeah, well, it could be a vaccine too because it helps take away the punitive stuff. But yeah, vaccine. That's a good way of phrasing it.
Right. We all need to be vaccinated against punitive justice.
I got to be back. You get your back.
And your introduction, Prince, when you said that, you know, his profound love for books, Sarah. He also had a profound love for words. So while facilitating these programs in prison, he decided to use effective communication to get the guys to understand it better.
Nice.
And Sarah, I say this before we go forward. You had said this in your introduction. I think you said it anchors us in the consciousness of unity or oneness. Wasn't that how you put it?
Yeah, so this summit is anchoring the consciousness of Oneness World Summit.
That is, wow. I like that.
What do we say, Prince? The concept of synergy, the whole of us is greater than any what?
One part.
One part.
That's right.
Yeah.
This is beautiful.
This really is about recognizing our connection. And that's what Unity Justice does. It helps us to recognize our shared humanity. And I have had my own experiences with the two of you, Paul and Prince, when I came to a workshop, I don't know, I guess it was a year-ish ago. I was told you about my son and him being in the prison system and then dying 6 weeks after he came home. And the way that you both reflected back to me my pain, I had never been heard in that way before. And my wound surrounding that not being heard has healed. And so I'm forever grateful to the two of you for that. And look, it didn't even take that long, right? You just really reflected the underlying pain that I was speaking. You reflected that back to me, and that's what healed. So this work is so healing on so many different levels. And so that's what, everybody needs to know about this stuff.
Hey, sir, I don't want to bust out in tears, right? But I just had to,
You almost got me too, man.
I know, like I always cry when you guys are on the screen for some reason.
we having our discussion. Sarah said that we're gonna be able to talk about it, so we're gonna talk like we talk, and our talking is about healing. And I recall that day, right? And you were sitting right beside me, right? And when you said to us that you had never been heard like that before in your life, I just was thinking like, wow, you know. And Miss Clute told us that in order to hold this, in order to hold the space, you have to be present, right? Now, that sounds really easy, right? And yesterday I heard a phrase about, we talk about creating safe spaces for people to express. And then a man named Brian Williams, he said, not only do we have to have a safe space, we have to have a courageous space. And it was courageous for you to be emotionally vulnerable in that moment. And then for us to be able to receive that, because you're talking about your son. This is just not anybody. This is somebody that you carried in your womb. And for you to tell us that we helped you deal with that pain, I'm like, man, when you think about mothers in the world, it's a lot of y'all, So I'm while you thankful for us being able to do that for you, I was thankful that that you shared it with us, because a lot of people walk around suppressing pain, feeling like no one wants to hear them, and then it becomes cancerous to their development. So I just think that that is really, really cool, and this is what Unity Justice is about, people.
Yeah, if you're going to do the work, if you're going to go out and teach the work, you have to do the work, right? And so that's what we were doing, and it was great.
It also, it was an honor to absorb it, but it also just gave us motivation. When you said that no one heard you, then it just put us on a path to find the next Sarah. That no one is hearing. It just put us on a path, man, because that was so emotional. Like every time you mention it, even the last time when we were together and you mention it, it does something to people, man. Like it does something to Prince and I, and I'm sure Miss Clute, because of that love for humanity. If we're going to set out a path of unity processes and try our best to restore humanity back inside of people, then it's only right that you're going to feel how you feel when you hear a story such as yours, So, the honor and the pleasure was ours, and thank you for sharing it, Sarah.
Yeah.
Hey, sir, I know I don't want to dominate the conversation, but I'm gonna just say this right here because we're talking about us. When I was, and this is going back to our prison experience, I used to take care of a lot of plants inside of them, and that may sound crazy. Like in our cognitive community, we had plants, right? And I'm not trying to equate your son's passing with this plant, but I just want to just show you what happened to me in regards to two of the plants that I had. I named my first plant Sarah. They said, why you call the plant Sarah? I did. I had a plant called Sarah, and Paul to tell you, and I did, and my plant died. Oh my boy, I was so sad, right? And I don't know, I think somebody might have tried to sabotage it, but either way, Sarah died, and I went and got another one because I got the staff to take us over to the horticulture class, and you could buy plants in there, and we got another one, and I called that one Aunt Sarah. Right? I did. I had Sarah and I had Aunt Sarah. And Aunt Sarah, she was blooming and blossoming all the way until I left, But that's my Sarah story from the inside.
Thank you.
Two good plants, man.
That's great.
I'll tell you, that hurt me too. My Sarah plant died, man.
Yeah. I bet, you're taking care of it and nurturing it, and then it that sucks. Well, I want to know what you all are doing in regards to unitive prison culture change. Like how did this begin, and what are you doing right now to change the culture of prisons?
Paul.
Oh, okay. So here we go. Well, before COVID hit, we were sort of laying, the process of what we have in store with Dr. Clute by going back inside of the prison and, having some conversations with the men, because Prince and I received so many calls, on a daily basis. Either it's guys that are calling us, or women that are calling us, or juveniles that are calling us from, that are incarcerated, and they're looking for some hope. They're also looking for the blueprint that Prince and I left. Those that wasn't around us, that are calling from other prisons, are looking for the blueprint, to get into where we are. So at the moment, we're in the process with Dr. Clute and Patrick of putting together some videos, man, to perhaps get back inside of the prisons, on a greater scale, because we can't be in every place at one time. And I just have to, acknowledge, Dr. Clute on this one, because she has a brain, man. She has a passion and a brain, man, for this work that it's so amazing, to see her say, okay, well, what do you guys think? And she never says, this is what I think. Our whole concept of our understanding is plural. Even with yourself, we have no I's, we have no U's. It's totally plural, So she'll always engage us on, what do we think about this? All the way down to the littlest, the littlest thing of what we're doing. She keep us included, keep us informed, whether that's email. Email might come through the feed from Clute about 1 o'clock in the morning. And I'm like, what is Miss Clute still doing up? But after you read it, you see that she's always working. And for 30 years, man, and bear in mind, she was a lawyer, but as she would tell you, she's a lawyer in recovery. Because during that process, she's seen that, how even on her side, the punitive element of it was just horrific. So a person dedicates their whole lifespan, their whole life to this. It becomes important to Prince and I, to the point that we care about her legacy, So what we're doing right now is putting together some training videos that, everyone that have seen them so far, or have helped out. We have, some other people that are helping also. I'll let Prince tell you who they are. But it's an amazing feel to, see your thoughts and, your feelings exhibit in such a way. And I just want to say thank you to Ms. Clute, for providing us a platform through Unitive Justice, her unitive program, to be able to do so.
Yeah, yes, thank you for that. What are we doing? All right. We're starting with self-governance, right? And as Paul was saying, how you when you govern your own affairs, you don't have to have anyone telling you what you need to be doing, because it's just a natural, innate thing. So we're teaching or making people aware of the significance or the importance of self-governance, right? That you're governing yourself according to your values, right? Your value system can change over the course of time, the things that I valued as a youngster, I don't value the same as an adult, all right? So we're teaching the principles of self-governance that's rooted in our values, right? Being honest in this moment, because, growth is continuous. Every day we wake up to learn more about ourselves so that we can better share the gift of ourselves with one another. So being honest about what's going on with you, because if you're in a dark place right now and you need some help, then you have to let people know where you are in order for them to reach you, which now takes us into the fourth thing that we're doing, which is gaining insight to the people in our lives, gaining insight so that we can better build community. That's what we're doing.
Yeah.
Right.
Yeah, there's something, what you just said was powerful on both of you, and talking about how to create the change within the prison system, starting with the inmates, the people who have no rights, right? And have to do exactly what they're told, or they get in, there's a punishment involved and things like that. And starting with the people who are the most oppressed in the environment and empowering them and that changes the whole culture. How does that change the relationship dynamic with the correctional officers and, and whoever else there who's in charge?
Oh, yeah. Yeah. Well, it makes their day a little easier because you ain't got to be packing up people to go to the isolation box. It reduces violence because, the things we did, we still had violent situations that took place. But I think that what for me, it was when something was about to go down, even those who were participants in the situations, they would seek some type of counsel. Like, man, this is what's happening. Not that they owed it to us or anything like that, but when a person can respect your wisdom or respect your insight into, for me, when I think about wisdom, I'm saying that's foresight or discernment. So I'm saying, well, you might make this decision in this moment, but look at the consequences that's going to become later. You go out here and you beat this guy up and he dies. You had 2 years or you had 6 months. Now you're going to be standing in front of a judge, potentially being in prison for the rest of your life, all because you wanted to try to prove to somebody who didn't really care about you that you were down for whatever cause. So it's a beautiful thing, that's just all the way I can say it. It's just a beautiful thing. And I'm glad that I'm able to look at it now and just be a part of it. I know I'm still growing, still learning, but hey, Miss Clute was doing it for 30 years. So
yeah,
here she is, you know what I'm saying?
Before we go on, I definitely want to make sure Clute acknowledges, the professors that are helping us with this.
Oh yeah, that too.
Well, man, they have to be acknowledged because they're helping us with the curriculum, our books, and our learning material, and they are definitely, for them to come down, from what they're doing, their schedule's already busy. To sit inside of Miss Clute's house at Clute's table, over some dates or some strawberries or something from the garden or kombucha or whatever we're having, and ask us, how does this sound in adding in the curriculum is parallel to what we're doing. It's powerful. But think about what Prince just said. So if you have a man inside of prison, that feels like he wants to be aggressive, then he wants to be aggressive to somebody else, exercise a punitive process on another offender, then he might as well go put a uniform on. Because we're already trying to get rid of that punitive element. So if you're running around trying to be a brute and bully and control people and tell people what to do because you can, to another offender, then you might as well just join the side of punitive, because you're not on a unitive platform that we're on. You're not on the same element or the same concepts and definitions that we're trying to describe, right? And that also goes for a correctional officer. When they're coming into, when so many of them had come inside of the prison when they were rookies, when they first come in, and then we give them about 4 months or less. And they'll come to us and say, man, you guys are nothing like what they described to us in the academy. So that tells us that they're being trained under this punitive element that we, offenders, are the worst of the worst.
Yeah.
So doing our unit of understanding or making it contagious, we make sure that they understand that we're the best of the best. And so far, so good, thank God, Prince and I have been able to describe our relevance in society.
Yeah. Yeah. And that's one of the things about the punitive system is that, there's 14 arcs, right? But they all interweave, in the hierarchy of things. We tend to place more value on some people than others. And for some really bizarre reasons, that we can trace back through history. And, I'm just thinking about my son because, we talked pretty much every day. And he was telling me about the level of emotional violence that occurred in the prison system, just being woken up in the middle of the night and having your room ransacked or, just random, just some seemingly pretty random stuff. And he's like, I just have to be strong. I have to be strong within myself and understand where they're coming from. And one of the things that I said to him was, the corrections officers are in prison too. They just don't spend the night there.
So that's true, sir. Hey, sir, you know what I was thinking when you know how people, and this is like also what Paul was saying about how, you want to be a brute or you have to be the biggest, toughest, meanest, guy that everybody is afraid of. I used to be thinking like, okay, man, if you have to build your right at the suppression of somebody else, then you're a weak individual.
Siri knows many things.
Siri, I'm not talking to you. If you got to build yourself up,
Siri is unitive.
Yeah, Siri just coming in when she wants to, but if you have to build yourself up based upon suppressing other people, then you really, really have a low self-esteem.
Yeah, and what is that about? How does that come about? And thinking about like the school to prison pipeline and how children end up in detention centers, and then how you're told that you're not worth anything. And, basically people tell you, you will go to prison. And then guess
Mm-hmm.
what? That information becomes absorbed without being analyzed. And then
Right.
before you know it, you're in prison.
I,
So
I had a
it's
teacher.
teaching people something different, right?
I had a teacher that I went for a job interview while I was in. Her name was Miss Manley, and I credit her for helping me see myself in a sense. And it was just a real simple statement that she made to me. And during the interview process, she said, we talked about, why do you want to be an academic aide? I like to help people learn, and stuff you say on job interview, And she looked at me and she said, Mr. Bunn, she said, are you the crime that you committed? And sir, I'm gonna tell you, when that lady said that to me, it was like the biggest light I've ever seen in my life went off. She said to me simply, are you the crime that you committed? And I thought about it and I said, no. I said, no. But this was not me saying no to the accountability for the reason that I was in prison, because I did what I did to go to prison. But I was bigger than that one thing. And I was not going to let my life be defined from the fact that I had selfishly took someone's life because I was hurting and I was in pain. And it's easy to hurt other people while you hurting. So when I see the guys in prison trying to be bullies, I'm like, man, you really just crying out for a hug, for real. You need a hug. You need someone to love up on you. And there's nothing wrong with that. And when you can see men be that type or experience that type of vulnerability, then I think that the unity process is working, because you have to strip down the layers and you have to open yourself up to say, you know what? No, I'm not the crime. I'm not the rapist. I'm not the murderer. I'm not the robber. I'm not the drug dealer. I'm Ann's son. I'm Tanzania's father. I'm Paul's brother. I got Clute dog in my life. I got Sarah in my life. You know what I'm saying? So that's how I see it. So yeah.
And we know from what you said, Sarah, that and I know where you were going with it. We know that there have been a lot of people with a lot of alphabets behind their name that said from, they can determine from the third grade, up that if a person is going to prison or not. Well, the first thing I question is, what group of children are they talking about? Right? That's the first thing. And I can also say that that could possibly be true, because every time I was in a juvenile detention or facility, Prince was either there or just left. Well, we grew up a little bit. We go to the juvenile prison, which was Beaumont at the time, a juvenile facility. Prince was there. Go through the city jail. Either Prince is there or he just left, or vice versa. And then, the city farm in our neighborhood, which is a step like before they send you to penitentiary, the local little camp before they send you off the penitentiary, Prince there. And then prison, Prince there. But what we noticed was when we got there, a lot of the same guys that we met when we were at Beaumont, juvenile facility, were now in prison.
Yeah. And so this is the natural progression in the punitive system, right?
Once you get in it, once you get tagged, once you get labeled, and it also comes from you can get out of detention, and like say you've been a popular guy in your city, and wherever you go, say a law enforcement ride by, they look at you, they still think you up to no good, even if you've changed. But you still seem to be caught up in that punitive process. Even us getting out, there was a few people that still had some raised eyebrow. Hell, it took me 3 years to really get them to believe that, I wasn't the same individual whom they described me to be. That's why, when the next time we have a conversation, instead of putting Paul Taylor, put Taylor Paul, because it's my way of announcing inside of the prison that I was the complete opposite of who they described me to be. And I still say that to this day. And Prince also. So Prince can also going to be Bunn Weldon, Prince. Bunn Weldon.
Wow.
And people have been through the process, but whatever they tried to describe the Clute, she is Clute Sylvia. Because you cannot describe us, unless you put unitive and positive and humanitarian attributes to our name.
Yeah. I love that. I mean, you have to flip it on its head, don't you?
Yes, you do.
Do something different. So, so the work that we have all done in Unit of Justice and then doing facilitating unitive circles in that process. Do you see that process happening within the prison system at some point? Is that a goal?
Not only in the position that, you know, God has favored Prince and I to be embarking upon now, right? I see it. I definitely see that happening. Not only there, I see it even happening possibly in the highest form of governments, where there may be a Republican and a Democrat having a discrepancy, and they might call Dr. Clute, Prince and I, or even yourself, Sarah, and say, man, we need a circle because we can't get to the end of this. We can't get to the root of our differences. And it may be one of us in there having a circle with some of your more popular politicians of today. It may be us in there because it's definitely needed there too. You know, not just only in, you know, what society seems, you know, it's trash inside of penal institutions, but also in those highest forms of government. This process can be well available and it works. You know, all they have to do is come to the light. You know, come to the light. Prince and I had the most beautiful privilege about a week or so ago with a guy, a moderator that's with us on Courageous Conversation. Prince just mentioned his name is Professor Brian Williams. And we had a conversation with his students at the University of Virginia.
Yeah.
And we know that University of Virginia is definitely predicated upon law. And boy, we had a beautiful conversation and we put the onus on them, saying things like, yo, you guys are going to be the ones that's going to determine, or have my children or our grandchildren, you know, in your hands. Treat them right. Treat them right. And it was so beautiful to hear them shaking their hands and understanding us coming from a unitive process, even though they're predicated upon law. They're going to be lawyers or either prosecutors.
And you know, sir,
out of those spaces.
You said about seeing if we can see the circle process in prison. And I just started thinking about, you know, a lot of stuff that we went through while we were in there, right? And here's just, you know, just a different language for a moment. All right, circle, right? And I want to put this in context of synergy, because a circle is a complete thing, 360 degrees. Another term that we use for circle is ciphers. But now the letter O or 0, okay? Now, every time that there, and Paul will attest to this, every time that there was a situation about to take place out on the rec yard, whether different buildings, different factions or whatever, guys will go outside, right? And their group will get over here and they'll form a circle. This group will get over here and then they'll form a circle. You know, it was always a circle. You know what I mean? They'll come to the gate, the friends, their partners that was in one building that was separated from another yard would come from the other building, and then they all stand. And once again, what was it, bro? A circle.
A circle, even through the fence.
Through the fence.
It's the fence, it's still a circle.
I just thought about that. And whoever was I guess if you want to call it leader or the strongest voice within it, they would talk to the guys. So it takes place, but they just don't understand it in the context of what we're talking about. But they always circling in there. And that's what we call ciphers in my way of life. You know, we say, now you got to think about it like this. This 0, right? Or this 360 degree circle, or this letter O, this circumference, however you want to, depending on your perspective, is going to be the determining factor what you get from it. Now, for a person that has a 0 mentality in the sense of how they see themselves, well, what do you see? I don't see nothing. I look at the circle, you know, I look at the circle and I see the possibility of the synergy of 360 degrees, all of us playing a part and a role in it. So they do circles in there. They just don't call it the same way we call it, but it happens. It happens.
That's so interesting that actually happens quite by accident.
by default. Between, man, you see circles popped up on the yard all the time.
Wow. Yeah. I mean, it really is a symbol of our togetherness, of us being together, or our shared humanity, or our connection. Yeah. So it does change the dynamic when we do our workshops. We do when we're in person. they're in a circle. And then when we do the conflict resolution, you know, the unitive circle process, which is resolving the conflict, that's also in a circle. And yeah, there's something to be said for that for sure. So
You can't escape it. You can't escape it.
yeah. So Sylvia, I want to give you the floor for a minute. Yeah. So can you tell me, like, or just give the audience a little bit of background about you and how you got to begin doing the work that you're doing, and what were your aha moments?
Yes, I'd love to do that. But first, I do want to mention the names of the two women and the photographer, the filmmaker, who are helping with the Unitive Prison Culture Change Training Program. So the filmmaker is Patrick Gregory. He's doing a fantastic job. It'll be 5 videos. And then those videos are going to be accompanied with a participant handbook, a correctional staff handbook, and a facilitator manual, because Paul and Prince want the training programs to be taught by the offenders who are incarcerated as them. They said they want the next Paul and Prince in the prisons to be teaching this. So these written materials are being prepared by myself and Tammy Sober, an assistant professor at the Virginia Commonwealth University, and Sandy Daves, who is, no, that's Sarah Daves, Sandra Dawes, who also is at VCU. Both of them are in the School of Education. So I am writing much of the Unitive Justice material. These books will also include the transcripts from the videos that Paul and Prince have done, so people can go back and access their message. And it has dynamite exercises that will help the offenders really get into the material more deeply and understand it. And those are being prepared by Sandy Dawes and by Tammy. Tammy is also right now doing that facilitator manual, where she's taking the participants manual and combining it with the instructions. And so we have a dynamite team. Everyone is totally committed to this. But I want to point out something that I know is now very visible to everyone who's been listening to this, and that is the message of unitive justice cannot be delivered by more credible messengers than Paul and Prince. So I can talk unitive justice all day long, and people would say, oh, that sounds so nice, you know, what a good idea. I've got to go do something else now. When Paul and Prince talk about how when they were incarcerated, they transcended the punitive system while they were in it. I mean, and the punitive system was sort of like the belly of the beast, you know, the prison system, not a school system, but the prison system. And so I have learned so much from them about unitive justice, because they did it when they were in prison without ever, you know, knowing all the research and thinking and everything that I was doing. And what that says to me is that when we transcend, when we get out of the dualistic thinking that we have to be in order to think that punitive justice, answering harm with more harm, is reasonable, when we can escape that, we all get to the same place, and that is the unitive consciousness, where we see the only way is justice as love, a system with no punitive elements. So yeah, it's been about 32-year journey now, but I can tell you that part of the richest part has been the last 2 years that I have known and been learning from Paul and Prince, because you can have the theory, but then you say, well, gee, how do you apply this theory? Well, Paul and Prince, what we have done for the training material is I will record them on Otter. You know, it gives me a transcript of what they say, asking them various questions. And then I can take that material and I can draft it into an article about how they did this. So actually the three of us have written a law review article
Yeah.
for the public policy law review at the University of Richmond. So that's sort of how we collaborate and how we work. It's like been a perfect union of bringing various skills and different experiences together. And this is one of the most important lessons that I think, I really feel that we model. And that is, if we cannot judge people because of our differences, but instead see that those differences, if they aren't a reason for judgment and separation, which is how we normally use them, if we can get over that, we can actually come together, join forces, and do so much more than we could ever do if it was just ourselves or people just like us. So that's where, you know, that's where we need to get. So that's what we're doing. We have this incredible wealth of resources and contacts and experience that we are bringing together to create things that we could never have even imagined until we were working together with our very diverse life experiences, you know, different belief systems, you know, all of the differences that we bring together are only ways that make the relationship richer and fuller and more productive. So that's the amazing experience I'm having with them. But just to briefly mention how it all started was I was a trial attorney. I went to law school. They're no longer doing this, but when I went to law school in the 1970s, I was told that a good attorney went for the jugular and conceded nothing. That's how you were to represent your clients. I entered law school while there were still quotas for women and minorities. So I had already learned in getting as far as I did that in order to succeed in that man's world, I had to do whatever was being done better than they did whenever possible. So I just went for that. Okay, so this is what we do. We go for the jugular and we concede nothing. And then I had the experience of reading A Course in Miracles. And I didn't understand what it was saying. It wasn't talking about a world that I knew. But then I came to a concept and it said, there are two models of justice, vengeance and love. Absolutely crystal clear what justice as vengeance was. That was what I had chosen as a profession. What justice as love looked like, I did not have a clue. But in that moment, I made a commitment. I was going to find out. So that's been the journey of 32 years or so, figuring out, okay, so I know what punitive justice looks like, but what would justice as love look like? So I began to see, well, there are particular structures that are in the punitive system that I experienced practicing law that were present when I walked into a courtroom. And so I would ask, now, what would we have to replace that particular structure with in order to have a system that had no punitive elements? So it became a comparison. Okay, hierarchy. The punitive system always has hierarchy. So what would you need to have in lieu of that to get out of the punitive system? Inclusion, you know, giving up judgment, what I was just describing, how Paul and Prince and I come together in an environment of inclusion. Judgment and separation just are not a part of the equation, despite the differences. Nope, they just make the whole thing richer. That's what we have to go to. And so it was that process of saying, okay, so punitive justice is based on the moral principle of proportional revenge. An eye for an eye, a tooth for a tooth. And that actually teaches that it's moral to harm another person as long as you do it in proportion to the harm that they did. So those life plus sentences that Paul and Prince got, someone decided that that was proportional revenge for the harm that they had caused. So if we're going to have a system that has no punitive elements, what is the moral underpinnings going to be? And that was clear that it was love. And so I searched for a term because a lot of it has been coming up with language. And so the term, the moral principle, loving kindness, do no harm. That doesn't mean you ignore the harm that's done. It means that you address it in a way that does not compound the harm. You're never answering harm with harm because it's not moral to harm another person. You must find a way to address the harm without answering harm with harm. And so that's what unitive justice is. That's what we're talking about. And I met Paul and Prince, and they had so beautifully figured this out when they were in the prison system. So it's been an amazing journey, but I can tell you the best part of it all is happening right now. And I love the work that you are doing and the course that you're going to be teaching, because you'll be teaching unitive justice theory. And I'm very excited about seeing this, you know, taken out by more people and expressed in their own voice. So that's beginning to happen. So that's sort of a synopsis. A lot of things along the way, including a lot of stumbles and hurdles and heartache, but here we are.
Hey,
Yeah.
Sarah, can I say something to what you just said briefly, please?
Sure.
There's Clute. Yeah, man, I love this woman. I'm talking about, like, when she said that the differences are not things that we use, right? It just takes me back to her home, right? When we go over there and we have our discussions, because our differences are funny, right? And we just laugh at them. I mean, we really do. Like the way sometimes we'll go over there and she's saying, okay, Paul and Prince, y'all want breakfast? And you know, she gonna do what she do. This Clute dog, she'll cook some stuff up. And if it ain't right, we don't get upset if she don't. We just laugh at it. Like, man, I want my eggs like that, Clute. That ain't how you cook eggs in the Black community. She
No
like, well,
eggs, I learned. No, no over easy.
And look, it is so funny because, you know, when you think about the relationships that we have and that we have built, we really do. We just laugh at our differences. We don't even trip. And we might have a discussion, and me and Paul may be using a language that she's not familiar with, and then she'll get like, well, you know, her brain starts thinking, a lawyer in her brain starts, well, what does that mean? And then we have to find that link, because once again, and you know, that's another thing. Our language and our relationship is evolving because we have to understand the perspective that she's coming from. And then she understands the perspective that we are coming from, and we just see the destination. And it's, you know, she talked about, you know, like, I think the thing for us is that we're not going to make people prisoners of their potential. We're trying to release their potential. Like, yo, just see it. And I was just sitting here listening to her, and I was like, yeah, we really do laugh at our differences. That's not to say that when we find ourselves in difficult things like where a Black man is being killed by a police officer, that we, you know, because it's two different worlds from that perspective. But even in the midst of that, we can still see our own humanity because we know that's not how it's supposed to be.
And you know, to co-sign what Prince just said, like, you know, there were times, you know, that I know I can be difficult, right? And what I mean by that is that, you know, they know I question everything.
Yeah.
You know, and sometimes Clute may get a little, she's just not the type of person that to pull her hair out, but she might get a little frustrated with me, right? But, you know, everything that we're teaching, she exhibits.
Yeah, yes, you do.
She don't throw a toaster at me or, you know, scream bloody murder to me. You know, she exercises what we're teaching.
Right.
So it's lessons that we are learning every single day in our own material and applying what we are trying to give to the people. It's demonstrated in our everyday circles and our everyday engagement with each other. It's demonstrated right there. You know, it's demonstrated right there, man. And I just love, you know, even when me and Prince, you know, that's my brother. You know how brothers are. I thought Miss Clute was going to have a circle with us doing a video training one time.
Oh yeah, right.
You know, and I just stormed out of there, just, you know, out of my head, just, and who comes behind me? And you know what's so crazy? I could have easily jumped in my car and whoo, but I sat outside for a minute. You know, you like a little kid, you keep peeking back, saying, is anybody going to come for you? There's old Clute dog, you know? And then I'm sitting on the curb, and then what she does, she sits on the curb with me.
Yeah.
You know? And then I get to crying like a baby, man, and, you know, and it just became all better. Even down to, like Prince said, when it comes to race, you know, a lot of the things when we was talking about our processes, I wanted to know, well, does anybody of color does restorative justice? You know, Clute would all find things all the way back from where Africa, where they were having community discussions when it came to a problem. Yep. You know, she did that for me, you know, because I wanted to make sure that, you know, this just is a one-sided thing. I wanted to make sure that it was a whole of everybody that had an understanding, you know, with different things, you know, and she helped me find that, you know. So we have our difficulties too, but the unitive process is how we get through it.
Yes, it is.
Yeah.
That is the truth.
So as they say, proof is in the pudding.
Yes, absolutely. You know, and this, if the viewers can walk away with this understanding of our differences are important and should be celebrated, and that's stepping into the unknown, right? Instead of what we know, more curiosity and less cleverness, right? Mm-hmm. And then when you step into the unknown, that's where the possibilities exist, and that's the nature of this work. So this is you know, a beautiful example of how we can do this together. Yeah,
we have a whole garden behind Dr. Clute's house.
Yeah.
And her husband, Eric.
Oh, Mr. Eric.
And her son. Oh man, it's like, and we like, you know, it's, you know, that whole thing, you know, me and Prince come from an urban environment, right? And like I said before, we know how to make kombucha. We had a mother at our house, you know, in our refrigerator, generating this incredible tea, you know. And some of the things that I remember one time we was putting together a salad for it, because we like to sometimes get together at Clute house at her table and we have food, you know, we invite some of the classmates. And you remember. And Miss Clute, we might be walking past the Clute, like look down and say, oh, this would be good in the salad, and scoop it up out of the ground. I'm like, Clute, black folk don't eat that, Clute. I'm no black folk, you know? Yeah. You know, and then just find out that I taste it and it's like, this ain't so bad. Now Prince eat everything. I call him the goat. He's like Prince eat it all. You know, she can put some. I remember one time we went to on a field trip to the YMCA, and she had a bag of clovers or something, and Prince ate. Video up. I took a video and put it on Facebook, and people in the hood was like, "Man, what is Prince doing?"
Sunflower seed sprouts.
Stepping into the unknown, Sarah. Stepping into the unknown.
Now we'll kill some barbecue sunflower seeds, but sunflower seed sprouts. But you know, just being able, like you said, Sarah, to open up to different possibilities and different things. She introduced us to so many different things that, you know, whether that's scent, sounds, or taste, you know, and it's just appreciated, because it only has now or further remove those shutters that were on our eyes. And this is what we want for society. So when we introduced her to our communities, that's how she got the name Clute Dog. And if you see her teaching inside of VCU or anything with a bunch of other students or whatever, and they have their name tags, you best believe hers is going to say Clute Dog.
Right.
Look, just it was last week. I was over at my cousin's house, Jareer, right? And I had called, and this is funny because it's just in support of what Paul was just saying. Now, she knows about Miss Clute, but she's never actually met her, right? So I called her, and I was telling her, you know, how you doing? And as I was communicating, because I'm going to talk to Miss Clute the way I talk. I'm not coming up here to try to be what I'm not. She knows me. So if I get up there trying to sound or do something different, she going to say, you know, Prince, are you feeling okay? So, you know, she going to go into her motherly thing. And once I got off the conversation or the phone with her, right, my cousin Jareer was like, man, because she heard Miss Clute and she was like, damn, she sounds white. Like she knew she was white, but it was like, you know, she sounds professional white, like, you know what I'm saying? Because Paul calls her, when she hangs up on us on the phone, he calls her voice the Little House on the Prairie, goodbye, right? So
Bye.
goodbye, right? So my cousin is hearing her, in real time, but she's sitting back. In her mind, she's thinking about the differences. But I'm telling her, no, this is the unity. She said, you talk to her like, I say, I'm gonna hit you up later, Miss Clute. And she was like, what? I'm like, yeah, this Clute dog. What are you talking about? But it's funny seeing other people look at us in our interaction that don't really understand the unity process of our relationship. And it's beautiful to me because it makes them have to rethink how they look at things.
That's right.
That's what I love about it.
You're serving in that moment as the beacon of light, the shining example for other people. Just by being, you know?
Just by being, Sarah. Miss Clute brought you into our life. So
That's
it's a
right.
continuum.
I did.
It's you, that union
Sarah
between
into
Paul,
our life, and Sarah into our life, Tammy into our life, Joey,
all of that. You know what I'm saying?
a whole lot
All
of
of it. Greg, Patrick, you know, everybody. So yeah, that's unity working.
Yeah, and we're all just, you know, a group of individuals, like I said before, including yourself, Sarah, you know, and that are just trying to restore humanity back inside of people.
Yep.
It's just that simple, you know. And a person wants to ask me, what do I think the perfect world looks like? I said a world that when people no longer have to say thank you, because everybody's doing right by each other.
That's beautiful.
That's like our motivation, man. It's like, you know, our mantra, our flag, and you know, and like I said, it's for 30 something years of work, man. You know, we really, you know, we really want to protect, you know, Dr. Clute's legacy.
Yeah.
When this thing actually gets to where it needs to be, and everybody starts throwing the credit about, you know, whether it wasn't for, you know, years down the road, it wasn't for, you know, this unit, this practice, and they start trying to attribute it to other people. Somewhere down the line in that breath, we want to make sure they mention Dr. Sylvia Clute.
You Clute dog.
Don't worry about the good old fellas that's on these. Don't worry about us. We're fine.
Yeah, thank you.
And you know, too, you know what I think too? Unity of justice is what is it? Unity of justice gets your smile back. Unity of justice to the listeners. Unity of justice will make you smile again. You better get with it. I'm trying to tell you.
And it just makes you feel.
Yeah.
It makes you feel beyond relevant. It makes you feel. It puts you in touch with your humanity. Your humanity. It makes you feel like, you know, who you're supposed to be. You know, it shows there's nothing wrong, you know, with lending a hand. You know, there's nothing wrong with lending a hand and not receiving anything for it.
Yeah.
You know, there's nothing wrong with that. You know, so it's just a beautiful vibe, man, a beautiful feel. And God willing, you know, this will be Sarah's #1 show.
There you have it. Y'all heard it.
Yeah. You heard it here.
TV, that's it. Channel Live.
Thank you so much. I appreciate all of you so much on such a profound level for different reasons. Sylvia has been my mentor for a long time. And
wow.
Yeah, she speaks highly of you, sir. Yeah. She really loves you. She really loves you, sir.
I love you, Sylvia, and I love you, Paul.
Now Prince and I actually see why. You know, so anytime you need us, you know, just put the unity of justice circle in the sky.
We need one of those. Can we get one of those?
That'd be real dope, right? If we had that, like that bat signal, unity circle. Whenever somebody's in crisis, they put it in the sky and we show up. Yo, that'd be dope, right?
That really would.
Yeah,
let's see if we can get that. Anyway, all right. Well, thank you so much. I don't want to keep you. I know that all of you are extremely busy and have lots of things to do. So I'm going to let you go back and continue your good work in the world. But I just want to say thank you so much for being here and sharing your message, because it's so important, and I appreciate you all.
Thank you.
Thank you,
Sarah.
I thank Ms. Clute for bringing you into our life, and you know, this stuff. What we're doing, I just want to say quickly, it's going to live beyond us. You know, we're talking about our life legacy. So, you know, just to be a part of something that's bigger than me as an individual, I'm humbled by it. And, you know, we just got to keep on. And despite all the naysayers and all the little people that want to use the fancy words, you know, if your heart ain't right, then this work ain't for you.
Yeah, but we'll all get there at some point.
Yeah.
We'll all get there, right?
And I said, and that's something I posted the other day, you know, your best legacy is leaving the world better than leaving this world in a better shape than you found it.
Yeah. That's about what it is.
Yeah, that's it. That's it. Well, thank you so much.
Thank you, Sarah.
Great.
I'm about
Thank
drinking
you.
more coffee.
Take it easy, Clute, dog. I guess we'll see you soon, more than likely. 'Cause I know that